Hello, everyone. Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today. We're going to start in just a few minutes. I just wanted to ask everyone who is joining right now to introduce yourself, tell me where you're from, where you're watching this webinar from. What are your intentions for today? What do you expect from the webinar today? And we're going to get started in just a few minutes. As you guys join in, please let me know where you're watching this from, where your name is, if you want to introduce yourself, and also what your intentions are to watch this webinar, what brought you here, why did you think the topic was interesting, anything that you want to share. All right, I'm going to get started by introducing myself a little bit. So my name is Yasmin. I am from Brazil originally. I am from the north of Brazil, the Amazonian region, from a city called Belém. And I grew up in the south in a city called Balneário Camboriú in the state of Santa Catarina. And throughout my childhood, I traveled a lot to the north to visit my family and to spend some time with them, to spend Christmas with them. And something that always sort of marked me and always shocked me somehow since I was growing up was the diversity and the inequality that exists in my country. And that's something that I wanted to share with you guys because that's a part of my story that's really important for me. And it's something that made me realize that I wanted to work somehow in this field of social impact and to and understanding the necessities that my country had and the inequalities that my country had. I always wanted to use my life somehow in a way that would impact the lives of other people and in a way that would mitigate those inequalities. I'm sure some of you can relate to this, and it's a really important part of my journey. After that, I grew up in the south of Brazil, like I told everyone, and after graduating from high school, I went to the United States to pursue my undergraduate degree in international relations and political science. And the experience of studying in the US was very interesting. It has been very interesting still. And it's something that I really value because I was able to, go to a different country, a country that it is a developing country, and to sort of realize my dream of studying abroad, which is something that I dreamed of since I was very young. So yeah, that's something really important for me. Right now, at the moment, I'm working for an organization called Youth for Human Rights Brazil. Youth for Human Rights is an organization that is present in a lot of different countries. And in Brazil, we are present in 6 different states, and the headquarters are in the city where my family lives, in Florianopolis. And through that organization, I work with education about human rights. So myself and a group of volunteers, we go to schools and other organizations related to education, and we use those opportunities and partnerships with these organizations to teach about human rights and to talk about human rights to students and teachers and even people from the public sector, sometimes in the private sector, sometimes too. Beyond that, I also co-founded an initiative called REFED to provide education for children refugees using technology. So that's something that I'm also really passionate about. I love education. I love technology, and I think there's a lot of potential to explore the relationship between the two. Other than that, at the Global Changemakers, I also was part of the Global Youth Summit in 2018. So last year, I was in Zurich in August, and I got to meet the amazing change makers from all over the world and the Global Changemakers team. If anyone is watching this webinar and wants to go to the Global Youth Summit, I totally recommend. It was the best week of my life ever. It was so good, really meaningful to me. I learned lots of important things. I learned lots of important tools that I am still able to apply in the work that I do today. So that was really important for me. And then after going to the Global Youth Summit, myself and a friend of mine that I met at the summit, Katya, we decided to think about how we could share all the knowledge that we got from the summit and also from past conferences, events, and mentorships and everything that we did in the past with other people and potentially with um, young leaders who had the potential to become true global change makers, but needed to know to get to know themselves better and to understand their purpose and to connect with other people. And so to accomplish that goal of helping young people realize their potential, we created a mentorship program, the Global Change Makers Mentorship Program. So I co-founded that, I idealized that together with Katya, and we launched it this semester. So if you guys have seen anything about the mentorship program in social media or in the website or anywhere else, Katya and I were the ones behind it. And I'm really glad that it's been running and it's been going very well. You're going to be hearing from us soon on the social media. We're going to share how the program is going with everyone. And our mentors and mentees are incredible people. We are super proud of them. We're super happy with them. Um, so yeah, I think that's a little bit about me. I'm talking about self-knowledge and social impact today. Self-knowledge was something that was really, really important for me since a very young age. I realized that getting to know myself really helped me understand the true why of what I do, everything I do. The reason why I wake up in the morning with energy and passion to be able to pursue the social impact that I want to create. And it also helped me connect my story and sort of connect the dots of my journey to understand why, how I got here, and what are my next steps, or any other big questions that we keep asking ourselves, especially when we are young and in a world that just wants and expects so much from us. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about that. I know that a few people are going to um, join the webinar later on, and that's okay. I'm just going to talk, and if you guys have any questions at all, please feel free to use the chat box, and I'll be more than happy to address the questions. So I'm going to share my screen with everyone so you guys can see what I'm seeing. Okay. Let me see. All right, I think this should work. All right, let me know if you guys have any trouble seeing my screen. I know you're going to see a little bit of the next slide. That's just because I had to split my screen, but I think that'll be fine. So like I told you, I'm Yasmin. This is my email if you want to contact me after this webinar, ask any questions, make any comments. I'll be more than happy to reply to any emails that you ask me. So like I said, today I'm going to be talking about self-knowledge and social impact. And I wanted to ask everyone to ask yourselves, what does social self-knowledge have to do with social impact? And but before we go into answering this question, I really wanted to suggest that everyone sort of remove any distractions that might be on your way right now. If your phone is buzzing, if you're getting notifications from WhatsApp, from Facebook, or whatever it is, if the window is open and it's bothering you, if there's any noises that are distracting you, I just wanted to recommend that everyone takes a minute to avoid those distractions, to take them out of the way, so that we can start and we can be fully present and actually learn and share some experiences together. So, what does self-knowledge have to do with social impact? Why are we relating these two topics? Like, what do they have? How do they complement each other? How do they affect each other? For me, it has a lot to do with these questions. Why do you do what you do? What motivates you? What has brought you here? I think the answer to these questions makes a significant difference in the way that we live, and because they help us find our true motivation. Um, and it's important to be able to connect this true motivation to our story and to use those connections as a source of inner strength to perform well in social impact activities. And I say this because a lot of times when we are involved in social impact, there's a lot of challenges that we have to face in terms of motivation, just because the world is full of problems and we just want to embrace the whole world, and we want to do the best that we can do to change it and to create the change that we want to see. And there's just so much demand, and from all sides and from so many different causes, that we want to kind of embrace everyone, and to find a solution for everything. And that's not always possible. And sometimes that can be frustrating for us as people who want to create social impact. And so it's really important that we find a motivation that comes from within, because when we do face those challenges and frustrations, we're going to be able to find true meaning inside us to help us move forward despite those external circumstances that could be frustrating sometimes. So that's why I think self-knowledge is important for social impact, so that we understand what motivates us, what we do, why we do what we do, and what has brought us here. And that has to do with our story, that has to do with, like I said, what motivates us, and so on. So there's someone I really admire here in Brazil. His name is Henrique Bussacos. He is the co-founder of 3 different impact hubs in 3 different cities here in Brazil. Impact Hub is an organization that provides community support to social entrepreneurs, and they also work as a co-working space. So in the co-working space, they hold several events for the social entrepreneur community in the cities, and it's an organization that's been growing a lot. They have, I think, like more than 50 headquarters around the world, and it's something that I really admire and value. And the co-founder of this um, the 3 impact hubs that I mentioned in 3 different cities in Brazil, he said something that really got me thinking about the importance of self-knowledge for social impact. And he said that after more than 15 years interacting with social entrepreneurs and seeing new leaders emerging from impact hubs everywhere, I noticed the necessity of an internal transformation process based on self-knowledge to create the radically better world which we dream of. So he's saying that it's really important that we get to know ourselves in order to create the transformation that we want to see in the world. So this is really important. And I really wanted to share this with you guys because this really makes a lot of sense to me, and it makes a whole difference when we are working with social impact. Next, I wanted to share 3 reasons why I think it's important to get to know ourselves, and always having the social impact element in mind. So, after reflecting upon the relations between self-knowledge and social impact activities, this is what I, Yasmin, have identified as the 3 main reasons why getting to know ourselves is important. And again, this is my perspective, and I'm sharing this from my own experience. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a coach, I'm not an expert in any way. So, I know this may not make sense to everyone, because I'm sharing here what makes sense to my story and to the way I see the world and to the way I see the work that I do. And so feel free to share any comments, anything that you agree or disagree with. It's totally fine. So first reason why I think getting to know ourselves is important is for self-transformation. So self-knowledge helps us transform ourselves according to the transformation that we want to see around us. So before we want to change the world, before we want to see things changing on the outside, I think it's really important that we change ourselves. So it would be hypocritical and it would not make sense if we wanted to say stop child abuse in our country or something, but then we abuse ourselves or we abuse other people in our own personal lives. So it's really important, and it brings us credibility, it brings us legitimacy to what we do. And so it's really important to get to know ourselves to be able to transform ourselves. And in this sense, getting to know ourselves means knowing our strengths, our weaknesses, and addressing them the way that they should be addressed. The second reason why I think it's really important to get to know ourselves is motivation. So, like I said earlier, self-knowledge helps us find the motivation from within, an internal motivation that will help us pursue our dreams and will help us pursue the impact that we want to create in the world. And this is really important to help us face challenges or setbacks and anything that comes along our way. It helps us find our true why. This is what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later. Motivation is our true why. It's the why we wake up every morning and we have energy to do what we do. It's the why we keep persisting in something even when everything goes wrong. Is why we believe that we can create change, even though the world is just so full of um, terrible situations and it hurts so many people. The last reason why I think it's really important to get to know ourselves is to be protagonists of our own lives. And this has a lot to do with the first two reasons that I showed you guys. But self knowledge helps us become our life's own protagonists, which leads us into building resilience, cultivating an internal locus of control, and getting to know our limits. I'm going to be talking about each one of these elements later on, but it's basically having responsibility over your own life and being able to define what your future will look like. Not to be taken away by external circumstances or anything else that happens around us, but really taking control of what we think is important, and connecting all of that to our story and to who we are, so that we're able to create the change that we want to see. So about the first reason, self-transformation, I bring a quote from Gandhi, and Gandhi says, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." This is something that is really, it really touches me every time. Is one of my favorite quotes because it's not enough to um, look at the world and want to change everything around us if we are not the change that we want to see. Getting to know our own personality, our strengths, our weaknesses helps us understand the path that we need to go through in order to become the change that we want to see around us. And then I wrote here, once we accept the challenge of transforming ourselves based on those perceptions, we also build integrity and credibility to do our work. So self-transformation, self-knowledge first is a really important step to self-transformation. And once we accept that challenge of getting to know ourselves, we're going to find the good stuff about ourselves. We're going to find uh, what our strengths are and the good aspect of our personality. But we're also going to find things that are not that good, but that we can change and we can transform so that we can create change around us. I really believe that true change, it starts with the individual, and it goes around to their community, to their family, to their country, and wherever else. But it always has to start with the individual. So it's really important that we look inside ourselves, that we are able to identify those things, so that we can transform ourselves according to the change that we want to see in the world. The next reason is motivation. So, as I wrote here, finding your why is key to leading successful projects. Um, so the what we do, the description, the rough description of what we do can lead us into good ideas. We can have good ideas when we brainstorm together, when we look at a project and we replicate it. This is all good. The what is good. Um, the how is always good, is also good. It can help us innovate and create meaningful partnerships. The how we conduct a social project, the how we think about a specific cause or campaign or whatever it is, this could lead us into innovating and creating partnerships, and this could all be very good. But only the why can keep us motivated when we face challenges, because it's the why that gives us a sense of purpose. So when I'm talking about motivations, I'm talking about the why, I'm talking about purpose, I'm talking about what makes us stand still before challenges in life. And it's important to understand that our story is unique. Each one's story is unique, and so is our world in changing the world. No one's story is going to be the same. No one's motivation is always the same, in the same way that our role in changing the world and creating the impacts that we want to create is also unique. And that's why it's important to get to know yourself and to know your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses, what makes you happy, what doesn't, what you're good at, what maybe you have to improve. This all helps us create a sense of, okay, who am I and how exactly do my talents, my abilities will lead me into creating the impact that that I want to create in the future. So I wrote down some questions that can help you guys understand your why. So how did I get here? How did my story shape me into who I am? And what are my values? So to help you answer those questions, I prepared a quick exercise based on the self-defining memories. Self-defining memories are the memories that reveal a lot about our personality, and they help us understand how we have become who we are today. So, self-defining memories are usually those moments in our story that really marked us, and those moments that shaped us into who we are. So they could be moments where we had an important victory and we felt really happy about it, or they could be moments where we were among family members or friends and we felt really happy among them, and those moments really marked us. It could be an event, it could be a trip, it could be a bad thing that happened. Maybe you lost a family member, maybe you lost a friend, maybe you felt betrayed. Those memories, those really key moments in our lives, they really shape us into who we are. And it's really important to be able to identify them in our story, because a lot of times they become those turning points that help us, grow and mature and be who we are today. So to practice, if you guys want to do this exercise maybe later, or if you want to do it now, feel free to. So, the way that we can practice self defining memories is thinking of 4 moments that have marked our life and draw them in a piece of paper and ask yourself a few questions. How had this moment marked me? What people were involved? Where was I? How did I feel? How do I feel when I remember it? How has it changed me? This exercise really will help you understand your story and understand how those moments have led into who you are today. And a lot of times, this will also explain where your motivation of working with social impact comes from. So, and a good example that I can give you is something that I mentioned right at the beginning. If you guys were here before, you're going to remember this. So, when I was first introducing myself, I said I moved from the north of Brazil to the south when I was very young. And that happened when I was like 5 years old. And I still remember being in the plane. I think this is like the earliest memory I have of my entire life. I can't remember anything else before that, just like with pictures and stuff. But when I was 5 years old and I was in the plane traveling from the north of Brazil to the south, I remember looking at the clouds and looking outside the airplane's window and seeing all those clouds and seeing how high up I was in that plane. And I looked at my mom, who was sitting right next to me, and I said, "This is so exciting. Like, we are going inside the clouds, and I feel so high, and this is so good." Um, and then my mom told me, "Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We're going to a new place and stuff." And I felt so excited, and I felt like I was going on an adventure. And that moment really marked me. So till this day, I love traveling. I love getting to know new places. I love moving to different places. And I feel like that's something that really marked me because it happened a long time ago and I still remember it. Another memory that really marked me that I think I can share with you is when I graduated from high school. High school was really important in my life. In Brazil, we have 3 years of high school, and all those years were really important for me. There were moments where I was getting to know myself and I was changing a lot. So it was really important. And the specific moment in my graduation that really marked me was when I was delivering a speech to the teachers. And I was thanking them for being on our side and for being with us and for, sharing their knowledge with us. And a lot of them cried. I almost cried when I was speaking. And that moment really marked me because it brought me a sense of gratitude and satisfaction for having finished something well. So a lot of other times I felt the same. But I think that moment was especially important for me. So those are two examples. I could give you other examples. The GYS really marked me as well, and I felt like it was a turning point in my life because the Global Youth Summit helped me realize that I'm not alone in this world in creating social impact and that it is possible because I got to know so many amazing people in the world who are doing similar work to what I do. So ask yourself those questions. Like, think about memories in the past that really marked you and that shaped you into who you are today. Maybe it wasn't something that you couldn't control. Maybe it was something unexpected that happened, but it actually turned out to be good for you because you developed this or that strength, or because you realized that you had a certain weakness, and from that moment on you try to improve that weakness somehow. So those memories are really important to help us get to know our story. And I'm suggesting that you guys think of 4 moments because a lot of them are going to come to mind, but try to pick 4 moments that really marked you and shaped you into who you are. They don't have to be good moments all the time, they could be bad moments, but think about how you can turn those bad moments into motivation and um, strength to continue doing the work that you do. And if you want to know more about this exercise, the self-defining memories, there's a book written by Blagow and Singer called 4 Dimensions of Self-Defining Memories. You can find some of that online too if you want to go deeper into the topic. The next thing that I wanted to mention about finding your true motivation is asking ourselves why. So our purpose is really linked to our values, and our values are really they're sort of signals, and they form the path that we choose to take when making hard decisions and etc. So values are characteristics that define behavior. They reveal what is truly important to us, and they are present in all of our choices and relationships. So a lot of times we think of values in terms of something really traditional and things like that, but usually values are something that motivates us. It's what we value. It's what helps us make hard choices when we have to make them. It's what helps us have meaningful and healthy relationships. So, and they help us find our why as well. So, to find your why, it's really important to ask what you value. And then maybe to ask, what are your 3 top values? If you have to choose 3 things that you're always going to rely on, that you're not giving up on, what would they be? Like for me, one of my top values is generosity. It's to be kind to people, it's to be generous to people. I think that's really important because for me, life has no sense if you're living it by yourself and if you're only thinking about yourself. So once you look at others and you're able to be kind to them and you're generous to them, you are really, well, at least for me, I am living up to my values. Another value that I think it's really important is integrity, which means being the same person in all environments. And I always try to have those values in mind whenever I'm making a choice or whenever I enter a relationship, any kind of relationship, really. Another question that you can ask yourself to get to know your why is, how have I applied those values when I was making hard decisions? So think about a really hard decision that you had to make in the past few months or so. How did your values speak into it? Did you listen to your values? Like, what were important elements that helped you make that decision? So I think this is really important too. And also, how have I applied those values into my relationships? There is a specialist that I really like to follow. His name is Simon Sinek, and he has a TED talk called "How Great Leaders Inspire Action." I wrote them in my slide here, so you guys can look it up online. But this TED talk is really interesting because it talks about sort of the three levels of motivation. The first one is the what, the second is the how, and the third one is the why. And he puts them in three different circles, as if the what was the most external one, and then the middle one is the how, and the center one, the one in the center is why. And he says that people with a stronger sense of of purpose, and people who are able to find their why, they tend to be more successful in life. And he's not the only one who says that. I brought an example for you guys here that I think can illustrate well what I'm saying. So it's called The Three Bricklayers, and this is from a book by Professor Angela Duckworth. She is the one, you probably have heard about her. She's the one who talks about greed and growth mindset and things like that. But here's the example. Three different people performing the same job may have different senses of purpose. All right. So for example, let's say that we encounter three bricklayers and we ask them what they're doing. The first bricklayer says, I'm laying bricks. The second says, I'm building a school. The third bricklayer says, I'm helping provide access to education to my community. Clearly, the last bricklayer has a stronger sense of purpose. So the thing is, how do you, it could be a very simple action that you decide to do, but how do you relate that to your purpose, to your why, to your true motivation? And according to Simon Sinek and also to Professor Duckworth, people with a stronger sense of purpose tend to be more successful. So it's really important that we look into our story, our abilities, our motivations, and that we find that one thing or many things that motivates us from within, and that we apply that into our work, whatever it is. We call it social impact work, but really to everything that you do. The last reason that I mentioned that self-knowledge is important for social impact is to become your life's own protagonist. So getting to know your story, getting to know your values, your strengths, and everything that I mentioned before really helps you understand how everything sort of fits into the role that you have in changing the world. It also helps you understand what your limits are and how you can respond to the problems around you. So once you know your story, you know how you got here, you know what motivated you to make the decisions that you made that brought you here. You know what difference those decisions made in your life. You have identified the values that sort of lead your choices in your relationships. You know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. Now you're ready to become your life's own protagonist. It's basically that. So, being your life's own protagonist helps you understand also your limits, because even though we want to embrace the whole world, like I said earlier, we all have limits. We have limited energy, we have limited time, we have limited financial resources. So, it's important to also know the limits and to know how exactly you, as a unique person with a unique story, unique abilities, unique values, can't respond to the problems around you. And it's important to know how you can do that, because I think today, especially with social media and everything that's going on, the world sort of requires a lot of things from us. And if you're not able to stop and listen to ourselves and to understand what motivates us individually and what is important for us individually, it's hard to get trapped into wanting to please everyone and wanting to embrace the whole world and forget about yourself. So, being a protagonist does not mean that you're going to be selfish, that you're only looking at yourself, at your own needs, and things like that. It means that you're able to take control of your life and that you're able to make good decisions and listen to yourself and base your decisions off of that. Aligned with that, we have a concept called the internal locus of control. So, the locus of control is a psychology based concept that sort of classifies the way people respond to circumstances in their life. So, there's basically two types of locus of control. The first one is external, the second is internal. And what I wanted to share with you guys today is that becoming your life's own protagonist is going to help you develop an internal locus of control, which means that you would be able to respond to any external circumstance with an internal motivation and responsibility. So, people who have an external locus of control will say things like, things happen to me, they determine my future, and there is nothing that I can do. And people with an internal locus of control say that I make things happen, I can determine my future, and I am capable. This is a very those are very different kinds of mindset. And once you get to know yourself and you realize your potential and your talent and your strengths, and you take responsibility of that, and you become your life's own protagonist, you're able to develop this internal locus of control and to take action when needed and to be proactive. And I think it's important to note here that we are aware of privileges and we know that not everyone has the same access to opportunities around the world. And that's why we do social impact work, because we want to increase the access of opportunity to all kinds of people. And I totally understand that. This is more applicable into your own life's personal choices. But I am aware that people have different access to opportunities, and I think it's important to mention that we can be sensitive to that too. So to apply this concept, I was going to suggest that you guys think of situations when you've reacted with the external locus of control, and think about how you can turn those situations into internal locus responses. So a very simple example that I can give everyone is, think about when you got late to a meeting. What did you tell people? Did you tell them it was because of traffic, or did you tell them maybe you didn't manage your time well, and you will do better next time? Because a lot of times I think we blame everything externally, and once we take the charge of our own lives and we decide to be responsible about it, we can have more control of what our decisions are going to look like and what the results will look like too. And I think this is really important for the work that we do. Um, Becoming your life's own protagonist also helps you build resilience. So it helps you understand where you failed, how you failed, and how you can improve next time. So believing that we can change, we can be the change that we want to see, helps us build a strong foundation for resilience and perseverance. Once we become our life's own protagonists, we learn to react wisely to any circumstances that arise. We will not be able to control what happens around us, but we can control the way that we react to it. So this is really important, and this is where I wanted to get at with the internal locus of control exercise. It's to help you guys understand that whatever happens around us, we cannot control the external circumstances. I can't control whether it's going to be rainy or sunny today. I can't control how traffic is gonna be. I can't control, or I can't directly control what the policymakers are going to decide tomorrow. But I can be resilient in the sense that I have control over my decisions and over the way that I react about things. And I can, decide how I am going to react, even though I can control the external circumstances. So think about how you've reacted to challenges in the past when working with social impact. When you were doing a fundraising campaign and it was hard for you to get all the money that you needed to implement a project, or when you were maybe collecting signatures to pressure policymakers in your city to pass a law or something, and it was hard to talk to people and to cast your vision. How did you react when volunteers in your team felt unmotivated and disengaged, and they just left your team and you had to do all the work by yourself? Those are all situations that we go through as people who work in this field. But we have to always remind ourselves of our motivation and what brought us here, and how our story has led us into who we are today, and really value all those things and use them to build a strong sense of resilience when we are facing all those challenges. Here's a quote from a Brazilian model that I really admire. She says, "I believe in the importance of seeking self-knowledge. I believe in the importance of seeking self-knowledge. The more I know myself, the more I feel empowered." This is really important too. We talk about empowering other people all the time. We're only going to be able to do that if we feel empowered ourselves. So, and feeling empowered ourselves goes through, or it includes, it involves getting to know ourselves first. So, I shared some tips and practical exercises that you can do after watching this webinar, or whenever you're free to do that. Um, but it's really important to do them in a way that you're able to identify or have insights that you haven't had before, and to use all of that to love yourself even more and to value your uniqueness so that you feel empowered to empower others. It's really important, like I said, to be the change that you want to see, not only to create the change or to impose change, but to first be the change, and everything's going to flow much more naturally than if you just impose something that you believe in. So the last things that I wanted to share are practical tips to exercise self-knowledge in our daily lives. So I've shared a few activities that you can do that can be helpful, but I wanted to share some practical tips too that I practice myself that have helped me include self-knowledge activities in my daily life, and that I believe have impacted my work as an activist, as a social entrepreneur, and etc. The first technique that I want to share is meditation. So there are several meditation techniques, and I'm sure you guys know some, but those related to intention, motivation, and presence are the ones that truly have helped me get to know myself better and to be more aware of the way that I react to situations that happen around me, and the way that I have decided to act upon them. So meditating, focusing on your breath, is something that helps you be present and helps us feel alive and sort of press pause on the busy world that we're all in. And that's always helpful. It helps us be mindful, it helps us be conscious and aware of what's happening around us and the way that we are going to respond to those external things. Meditation focus on motivation. You could start with noticing your breath, taking deep breaths, just seeing how your breath is going, what's the rhythm of your breath, how you're feeling at that moment, and then dropping a question in the middle of your motivation. Why am I doing what I do? Or what are my intentions, for instance? And then just letting the thoughts come and go, and sort of identifying within your thoughts your inner motivation, and taking that to the rest of your day. This is really good to do in the morning, by the way. And then meditation on presence, it's something that you can really do anywhere. So something that I really like to do whenever I'm going out with someone, a friend or whoever it is to feel the textures, hear the sounds, take a look to notice what I can see, take a look at people around me, and just really feel everything and waken up all of my senses and to feel present. This is something that really helps us to get to know myself, because it helps us me look at myself and not only what's happening externally. It helps me relate what's happening externally to the way that I'm reacting to those things. And these things are really, really important, and they make a huge difference once you're practicing them daily. The next thing is something called the star reflection. Some of you may probably know STAR, and it's an acronym that helps us reflect upon and value our own experience. So our own experience helps us get motivated a lot of times, and our own story is important to help us get going. So STAR is an acronym of 4 letters: STAR. S is for situation, T for task, A for action, R for result. So whenever you're going through a new challenge, try to apply the star reflection. And you're going to realize how much you have gone from that. And that brings us a lot of motivation to continue doing the work that we do. This is something that works a lot for me. It might not work for everyone, but it's a suggestion that maybe you guys can try. So I can give you an example. Last year in November, I had an event that I was coordinating for a few months. It was called The Bridge, and the event was supposed to unite social investors and NGOs in my city here in the south of Brazil. So the situation was I was hired to apply a methodology from England for the first time in Brazil to connect those social investors and NGOs. My task was to do that with a very short period and a very short team. So we had a lot to do with little time and very few people. The action I took was to identify everything that we needed to do before the event, to have a full vision of what the event would look like and how it would flow, what we needed for each one of those steps, from welcoming people into the event until communicating the results of the event later, because we were going to have a time for donations and things like that. And then delegating those tasks to the team, which was very small. So I had to be really smart about the way I did that. And the result was that the event went really well, and we were able to raise almost 3 times more than we expected. So this was really good, and it was a star moment for me. And after the event ended, I did my star reflection, and I really valued my experience, and I really valued the way that I learned from it, and it brought me motivation to take on other challenges that were similar to those, and that I believed that I could deliver a good result. So this is really important too. And the last practical tip that I wanted to share with you is asking yourself why. So, whenever you're taking on a new project, whenever you're facing a new challenge, ask yourself why. Whenever you're going out with someone, with a friend or a partner or anyone, just take some time to explore your own motivation. Like, why I'm here? Why did I say yes to this project? What do I expect out of it? And when you ask yourself why, always be willing to separate your expectations from your intentions, for instance. Because an expectation is something that is external to us and is sort of a passive um, element of our motivation, and it's like what I expect that will happen to me. And this is something I actually learned from one of the Global Changemakers team members, Sarah. She taught me to separate expectations and intentions, and I've been trying to do that, and it's been really meaningful. So when you're entering a new project, your expectation might be that you're going to impact 100 people. But if you turn that expectation into an intention, you bring the responsibility to yourself to create that impact. And again, talking about protagonism and getting to know your story and getting to know your values and your strengths and your talents really helps us turn your expectations into your intentions. So when you ask yourself why, have the word intention in mind. Like what is my intention going into this meeting? What is my intention getting to know this person? What is my intention managing this new project, creating this fundraising campaign, doing whatever it is. Because being motivated from within really helps us keep going when we're facing challenges, and it helps us bring clarity about where you are and where your next steps are and what you're doing, what we do. So this is really important. So yeah, I think that's it. That's what I had to share with everyone. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. If anyone is watching this later too, I hope you enjoyed it. And I am more than available to answer any questions that you might have, to chat about anything that I mentioned here. This is my contact info. So Yasmin at global-changemakers.net. If you want to shoot me an email, I'll be more than happy to reply. And I just want to thank everyone for being in the webinar today. Always remember to look at your story, to look at your motivations, to ask yourself why, and to really find the true reason why you decided to go into social impact. It's okay to feel frustrated sometimes. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, but always try to remember what has brought you here and what made you start doing what you do. Finding your true why makes a whole difference in creating social impact. It makes it sustainable, it makes it effective. So always remember those things. And if you ever want to chat about it, shoot me an email, send me a message, and I'll be happy to reply. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a great day or a great evening wherever you are. And I hope to talk to you guys in other opportunities soon. Thank you so much. Bye bye.